Chapter 79, Record of Ragnarok, chapter review. So we've got the pacing, character, story. Pacing, I'm giving it 2 out of 5 because there was 9 or more parts, you could argue. You have the introduction. You essentially we briefly see Xerxes. We have Assembly Hall with all essentially Spartan leaders. You have essentially the guard kind of giving his monologue, what kind of jumps, and then jumps to King Leonidas kind of going in, talking. You essentially have the guard kind of doing monologue, then you have Leonidas leading the battle. You have the battle, and then you have jumping back to present day. Within the battle itself, you have almost, you could argue other parts. To me, it still felt like that still could be argued as one. So that's why for the 9 parts, I'm giving it a 2. I like this chapter, but that to me was the weakest part. Character, we've got, I felt. Now you could argue for the characters. For me, the one that stood out was Leonidas, the council, the diplomat who was arguing to go to war, the guard, and then Apollo. So let's start with the diplomat arguing. He understood what the council elders were essentially saying is, hey, this is a holiday. We really can't do this. He's like, I understand that, but holiday or not, we're about to get stomped, and he's not going to save us, so we got to do something. And so I like that he was continuing pushing. You could still see for me, he was at least willing to listen, but he was like, no, we got to do something. Whereas then the guard, I felt was kind of like, this is ridiculous. We know what we need to do. Let's do it. But he was just still kind of sitting there listening. But then he props up how Leonidas was like, gods be damned. We got to go. And so he's talking about how essentially Leonidas led people to want to do stuff. And so I like how we get the guard's perspective. He's kind of like the cheerleader almost. Speaking of Leonidas, strong, powerful, going to do what he could to protect his people. He's like, look, if you can worship gods, I felt like, fine. But then be damned, they're not going to help us win this war. So get this foolishness out of here. Let's be done with it. And so to me, it was nice to see that he's fighting Apollo and they're showing this kind of connection. There's not, but the story is putting it there to add more tension and more reason for him to want Leonidas to fight Apollo, and I like that. He is a strong leader. He cares about his people, and he knows what he has to do. I like that about him. There's some of what history tells us. The council didn't think the younger generation was respecting the traditions, which we see a lot kind of that feels now. And so they're like, we have this tradition. It'll be okay. We take a break. Everything always works so well. Apollo makes sure. They have a lot of faith in Apollo and really not wanting to break tradition. And when Leonidas does, they are nervous, upset. They're like, you can't do this. This is wrong. Like, no. It's like, I don't care. And so I like that they're at least sticking to their convictions. Do I think their convictions are wrong? Yeah, situation. But at least you can see they have values and they're willing to stick to them. Apollo. Very briefly, we see him essentially very, well, you can get on your knee, worship me. Doesn't think anything of Leonidas, doesn't think he's a threat. It's like, you're not a big deal. So I like the godly aspect of it. Gave it a 3. I thought we could have gotten a little more from Apollo is why. Story. I love beginning essentially, we get to essentially set up what happened with Leonidas, what made him the man essentially he is, who he was. And so we kind of got to see this lead in. We got to essentially see him then, instead of listening to the council, he barges in. He destroys the statue, which I think led to kind of some animosity maybe between Apollo or him, or at least what Apollo had for the people. Leonidas was all against, look, you can do your pacifism and stuff, but it's like, there's action, so we're seeing he's a leader of, and I could see maybe the author's going to show us that could be a bad thing sometimes. And then Leonidas' weapon changes and he can throw it and move back. It's like a yo-yo. I like that aspect of it. For me, this was a 4 out of 5. So, total 9 out of 15. 2 for pacing, 3 for character, 4 for story. That has been Chapter 79, Record of Ragnarok Review.